Today's three readings have a very similar theme. Three different familiar figures who eventually did great things for God: Isaiah, Paul, and Peter. When confronted with God's call, they resisted. When confronted with the greatness, the goodness, and the holiness of God, they became keenly aware of their unworthiness, their sinfulness. When called by God, none of them stepped forward willingly, rather finally accepting the call reluctantly, feeling that they were unworthy of it. Isaiah, when God called, cried out, "Woe is me, I'm doomed, for I am a man of unclean lips, yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Isaiah is overwhelmed by his personal unworthiness and is mindful of the belief from Exodus that to see God would lead to one's death. A human couldn't see God and live. Paul can never forget that once he was so self-righteous and full of pride, he actually led campaigns to persecute and execute the early followers of Jesus. We heard in today's second reading Paul saying, "I am the least of the apostles, not fit to even be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God." And in the Gospel of Peter, after the miraculous catch of fish so large that it nearly sank his boat, declared, "Lord, depart from me, for I am a sinful man." Each one of them begins by acknowledging his unworthiness, inadequacy, and sinfulness, but ends up by accepting God's invitation. And by not relying on their own abilities and resources, but rather relying on God's help, God's grace, they each accomplish marvelous deeds. A few years ago, at Catholic Charities, we had the shelter in Eau Claire. It's still operating, the Sojourner House. And there was one of the guests who was there. His name was Larry. And he was a kind of a typical guest. He came there, he had a drinking problem, one thing or another, fell on very hard times, and found that he was homeless. And so he started living at the shelter, but he had a little bit of a different attitude. He was trying to improve himself, trying to be better. He was very humble. He'd help around the house, cleaning and whatever. And after he was there for a while, several months that he stayed there, we asked him if he would like to have a job at Sojourner House, at the shelter, helping to take care of the shelter. Well, at first, just like these people in the readings today, it was like, "Oh no, I don't think I can do that," or, do you really think that I can do that? Or, I'm not worthy. I was just a guest. How can I be working here as well? And so we encouraged him a little bit, and indeed he started working. And in fact, he's one of the cornerstone workers that is at Sojourner House at this time. He was very successful and continues to be successful and has a working job now, lives in an apartment, and is able to make something of himself, is able to do something. Today's gospel is not simply about a famous moment 200 or 2,000 years ago that happened along the Sea of Galilee. It's about right now, in the moments of our daily lives. From the moment of our baptisms, which we are celebrating tonight, through every phase of our lives, from going to school, accepting a vocation, our occupation. Perhaps it's in marriage, our families. God is always touching us and calling us. Even though we commit sins and are weak, we are called through Jesus with his words, "Follow me." He comes not only in our worship at Mass, but in the frustration of hard work where we catch nothing. In the times when it feels as though we are sinking, when we're struck with fear, when we hear bad news, or or receive an unfavorable medical report. God comes not only in washing our nets, but in washing our dishes, or doing laundry, or running endless errands. He calls us in the people we love, and in people who drive us crazy, even in people who live on the margins of society, or who don't seem like they are even worthy of our attention. He calls us to hear his voice. He calls us to bring the compassion, the justice, and mercy of God to a world that is so desperate to hear it. We may feel like Isaiah, Paul, or Peter in today's readings because of our unworthiness, our inadequacy. But if we are open to God's will in our lives, and we seek his way, his direction, we will find God's grace is much more powerful than any of our fears or hesitations.